The first time I realized a home could betray you, I was standing in a place I had built with my own hands. They call it the Linden Estate now, but to me, it was simply the house where every brick carried a memory, where every window held a fragment of my life. I am Eleanor Vale, 72 years old, widow of the man who built Vale Industries with me from nothing but grit and impossible dreams. And this is the story of how the people I loved most tried to bury me alive in the very foundation I created and how I refused to stay buried. If you listen closely, you might hear the echoes of laughter that once filled this estate. My husband, Gregory, had the loudest laugh, a warm, rolling sound that rattled even the glass chandeliers. When he passed, the house grew quieter, but it never felt empty. Not completely. My son Adrian was still here, brilliant and talented, though always a little lost in the shadow of his father. I used to tell him that leadership doesn't come from filling another man's shoes, it comes from learning to walk your own path. He smiled politely when I said things like that, but I could see the doubt flickering behind his eyes. Then came Cassandra. She arrived at a charity gala one spring evening wearing a sapphire dress that caught the light like water. Her smile was warm, her eyes kind, her touch delicate. She spoke to me as if she had known me her whole life, and somehow I felt seen in a way I hadn't since Gregory died. She adored Adrian, or so she said, and, unlike the women who came before her, she didn't chase his money or the family name. Or at least that's what she made us believe. For a time, the house felt alive again. Cassandra brought fresh flowers to the terrace every morning, made sure I never lifted a finger, and insisted I eat with them every night. Family isn't about obligation, she told me once. It's about ease. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that fate had finally shown my son a kindness. But the first cracks in the perfect picture appeared slowly, almost politely. You don't need to worry about every meeting, Eleanor, Cassandra would say sweetly. You've carried the company for decades. Let Adrian feel what it's like to stand on his own. Then it was, you shouldn't stress about taxes, Mom. Rest, live, breathe. Let us take care of the paperwork. Then, why don't we limit your workload? You deserve to enjoy your golden years. At first it felt like love. Then it felt like suffocation. The day I knew something had shifted forever, I overheard them in the west hallway. My hearing isn't what it used to be, but pain has a way of sharpening the senses. She signs the papers, and everything falls into place, Cassandra murmured. She barely reads them anymore. I don't know if this is right, Adrian whispered. She's my mother. Then you should want what's best for her, Cassandra snapped. Control, stability, order, and we will give that to her when she lets go. I stood frozen behind the corner wall, their words digging into the deepest part of me like a cold blade. I wanted to storm in, to demand answers, but instead I waited, and listened, and pretended not to know my world was slowly being shaved away piece by piece. Weeks passed, and the estate began to feel unfamiliar. Certain staff members were dismissed. Doors I once walked through freely were suddenly kept locked. Files were moved. Access codes changed. Even my calls to longtime board members started going strangely unanswered. I knew then that the home I had once built with love was turning into something else, a cage lined with silk and sweet words. The night everything broke open, rain hammered the estate like fists against the stone. I was sitting in the sunroom when Adrian appeared, looking pale and nervous. Cassandra stood behind him, her expression soft but her eyes unreadable. Mother, Adrian said gently, there was a disturbance near the east grounds. Security thinks someone tried to scale the back fence. We don't want anything happening to you, Cassandra added. Please stay in the vault room tonight, just for safety. The vault room, a fortified chamber beneath the old library, built decades ago in case of emergencies. Gregory had insisted we install it after a competitor issued threats. I had used it only twice in my life. Something in my stomach twisted, but I followed them. The house groaned under the thunder as we descended the narrow stairs. The steel door glinted under the low light. Just a night, Cassandra whispered. We'll check on you in the morning. She handed me a warm cup of herbal tea, her fingers brushing mine. Her smile was honey-sweet. The door shut. Then a sound. I had never heard before inside that estate echoed through the cold room. Click. A lock. A lock on the outside. Adrian, I called. Cassandra. Silence. I pressed an ear to the door, my old bones trembling. Beyond the steel, I heard whispers. Then a quiet laugh. She signed the revisions as soon as the sedation settles in, Cassandra said. After that, no one will question anything. She's elderly. Confused. It won't be hard to convince the board she's unfit. And after the transfer, Adrian asked, his voice shaking. She'll have everything she needs, Cassandra said, just not control. My heart cracked, but it did not break. They thought cornering me made me vulnerable. They forgot who built this empire. They forgot whose hands carved the marble beneath their feet. The hours crawled by, then days. They brought me food along, cold sandwiches, tea that tasted bitter. They pretended I was fragile, confused, stressed, but they didn't know what this room really held. Gregory and I had crafted a secret compartment behind the ventilation grate decades ago, one even Adrian never knew about. My hands shook as I unscrewed the panel with the small tool built into the wall. Inside, wrapped in cloth, was a backup phone, several water bottles, a flashlight, and most importantly a master key to the service tunnel that connected the vault to the outer sheds. But I didn't use the phone to call the police. Not yet. I called the one person who had always stood by me, our family attorney, Mara Sinclair. Mara didn't panic. She didn't gasp. She didn't waste a single second. Stay where you are, she said calmly. Do not reveal the tunnel. We need them to believe you're trapped. I'll take care of the rest. What followed was the longest 3 weeks of my life. Cassandra and Adrian flew to Lisbon, then to Dubai, posing as the new executive heads of Vale Industries. They dined on yachts. They flaunted their status on magazine covers. Cameras flashed. Money flowed. Their smiles grew wider. What they didn't know was that every account they touched was a decoy. An elaborate network of shadow accounts Gregory had created years before. The real wealth remained untouched, frozen behind layers of legal protection Mara activated the moment I made the call. And the documents they forged, recorded, the conversations, they whispered, monitored, the signatures they thought they had tricked out of me, all invalid. The estate lay quiet when they returned, quiet enough to unsettle them. Their feet echoed across marble floors they once walked with such triumph. Then the lights turned on, all at once. Chandeliers blazed. Curtains swayed. The scent of cinnamon and citrus filled the air from candles lit hours earlier. What is this? Cassandra hissed, her voice sharp with panic. Where is everyone? Adrian looked around. A boy again, lost in a storm of his own making. And that was when I stepped out, not frail, not broken, not the confused old woman they believed they had locked away. I wore the midnight blue dress Gregory loved, my silver hair pinned back, my spine straight as a lance. Welcome home, I said softly. Adrian stumbled backward. Cassandra's lips parted in horror. But how? You shouldn't underestimate a woman who built an empire, I replied. On the dining table sat a small black drive. What's that? Adrian whispered. The record of every step you took to steal from me, I said. Every signed forgery, every transfer, every conversation. Cassandra lunged toward the door, but outside the windows blue and red lights flashed across the courtyard. Dozens of cars, officers moving in formation. You've been under investigation for weeks, I explained. Mara made sure of it. Adrian stared at me, tears forming. Mother, you hurt me, I said gently, but I will not carry hatred. I will carry truth. When the officers entered, Cassandra fought like a trapped fox. Adrian collapsed to his knees, sobbing, and as they were led outside, I felt no joy, only clarity. The estate wasn't a cage, it was a throne, and I had reclaimed it. In the days that followed, I made decisions with a heart steadier than it had been in years. Half the wealth was moved to new foundations programs for elderly women stripped of power by those they trusted, scholarships for daughters who lost everything to greed, shelters for anyone betrayed by family, spouse, or circumstance. The rest I rebuilt, carefully, intentionally. Sometimes, in the late hours of the night, I sit beside the grand fireplace with a cup of tea Gregory would have teased me for drinking. I watch the flames dance against the old stone and whisper to the house. They tried to lock me away, Greg, but they forgot we built this place on truth, and truth always finds a way to rise. The estate is quiet again, but it no longer feels empty, it feels sovereign, and I walk through its halls not as a victim, but as the woman I have always been, unbroken, unwielding, unforgettable, the queen of her own legacy, standing tall in a kingdom no one will ever take again. Thank you for listening. If this story kept you holding your breath, tap subscribe and join me for the next chapter of betrayal, justice, and resilience. Until then, stay vigilant. Not every smile is as innocent as it seems.